They always said you could tell a lot about a person by the way they treated the cleaning staff. But no one was paying attention, not even a glance, when Evelyn Johnson, a black woman, wearing a worn-out uniform, hair tied back, pushing a cleaning cart, walked into the pristine offices of Pinnacle Enterprises, downtown Chicago. Her head was lowered, hands calloused from years of hard work, invisible to all. The executives, in their designer suits, polished shoes, barely noticed her. She was just another worker to them, another shadow. She cleaned up after their mess, wiped away their coffee stains, polished their windows. Little did they know, Evelyn was about to change everything. It was just another Tuesday morning when Greg Matthews, one of the top executives, scoffed at her while she cleaned the glass windows in the boardroom. "Hey, make sure you don't leave streaks this time, okay? Some of us have important meetings here," he sneered, barely giving her a glance. His colleagues chuckled, amused. Evelyn said nothing. She nodded, her face calm, and kept wiping the windows, in silence. Little did Greg know, his smugness was about to cost him everything. Hours passed, employees flowed in and out, treating Evelyn as a fixture in the room, not a human being. They gossiped, made jokes behind her back, flicked their hands when she was in the way. No one at all, cared to realize who she truly was. Except, perhaps, for one, Jessica Reyes, a new hire, fresh out of business school, her eyes sharp, observant. She watched Evelyn with curiosity, noticing how she moved with an unusual confidence, her gaze taking in more than just dust on the floors. Something about Evelyn told her there was more beneath the surface. And then, on that fateful afternoon, everything unraveled. The CEO of Pinnacle Enterprises, James Willard, feared, admired, the ruthless leader who had driven the company to the top, flew in from New York for the annual review meeting. The air in the boardroom was tense, silence falling as James entered, standing at the head of the table. He glanced at Evelyn, standing quietly in the corner, her cleaning supplies in hand. For a moment, it seemed as though time itself held its breath. Then, James smiled, a warm, genuine smile. "Evelyn," he said, his voice carrying through the room, "I think it's time, don't you?" The board members exchanged baffled glances. Greg Matthews sat frozen, his smug smile fading. Evelyn put down the rag she had been holding, her movements deliberate, calm. She took a deep breath, and turned to face the stunned executives. "Yes, Mr. Willard," she said, her voice carrying a quiet authority that had always been there, hidden beneath her uniform. She walked to the front of the room, a ripple of confusion spreading through the crowd. Jessica's heart pounded, something monumental was about to happen. "Ladies and gentlemen," James began, "I'd like to introduce you to Pinnacle's majority shareholder, Evelyn Johnson." Gasps erupted around the room. Eyes widened, jaws dropped. Silence blanketed the once arrogant group of executives. Greg Matthews was motionless, color draining from his face. Evelyn stood tall now, her presence commanding the room in a way no one had expected. "For years," she began, her voice steady, "I've watched how this company operates, not from behind a desk, but from the floors you walk on, the hallways you pass through, the offices you leave in disarray. And what I've seen is a culture that lacks respect, that values profit over people. Today, that changes." No longer was she the quiet cleaning lady. Now, she was the force behind the company, a woman who had built herself up from nothing, who now owned the empire they all worked for. She continued, "From this day forward, things will be different. I'm not just cleaning up your messes anymore. I'm cleaning up this company. Jessica, standing at the back, couldn't help but smile. Evelyn had always been the invisible force, and now, she was making her mark in a way no one would forget. As Evelyn finished, the truth settled in. They had mocked her, belittled her, but they had never known her. Now, she owned them all. The room was thick with shock. Greg Matthews, the man who had mocked her just hours earlier, sat rigid, his fingers gripping the armrests. He was trying to remember every word, every sneer, every comment he'd ever made. How could he have been so blind? Evelyn looked directly at Greg, her expression cold. "No, you didn't know," she said, her voice calm, "and that's the problem. You didn't care to know. You saw me, but you didn't see me. You never asked who I was. You saw a uniform, and that was enough for you." She paused, her gaze unwavering. "And that is why you'll be the first to go." Greg's face paled. "What do you mean?" he stammered, his voice cracking. "You're fired, Greg. Effective immediately." Murmurs erupted as Greg sat back, his hands trembling. In a matter of minutes, everything he had worked for was gone. Evelyn turned her attention back to the rest of the room. "This is a wake-up call," she continued, her voice strong. "I may have started at the bottom, but I built my way to the top. I bought this company, piece by piece, and now, I own it. Pinnacle Enterprises is going to change, and if you can't adapt, you're welcome to leave." The executives were humbled, their walls of superiority shattered. Jessica, her heart swelling with admiration, saw in Evelyn the leader she wanted to follow. Evelyn turned to James, who nodded at her, respect clear in his eyes. "Thank you, James, for believing in me," she said, her voice softening. James smiled. "It wasn't hard to believe in someone as strong and determined as you, Evelyn. This company needs someone who knows what it means to earn their place." Evelyn looked around the room one last time. "This is your opportunity," she said. "You can stay and be part of something better, or you can leave. Either way, things are changing." With that, she walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind stunned faces and a shifted power dynamic. Jessica followed, her heart pounding, catching up in the hallway. "Miss Johnson," she began, her voice full of respect, "thank you, for everything." Evelyn paused, smiling warmly. "You don't have to thank me, Jessica. Just remember, never let anyone tell you your worth. You decide that." Jessica nodded, knowing she had witnessed something that would change not just the company, but her life. As Evelyn walked out into the Chicago skyline, the city itself seemed different, no longer just glass and steel, but a place where anyone could rise to the top, if they had the strength. And as for Pinnacle Enterprises, they would never forget the day they laughed at Evelyn Johnson, the cleaning lady who owned it all.